everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood. I have someone with me from tomorrow. So Trang Nova is in Australia, where it is morning tomorrow. And so welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for getting up and coming on live with me.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jeanette. I'm delighted to be here. I'm excited for this.
Fun to hear the accent. I love it. I know you don't think you have an accent, but and that we do. But so let me tell you the official bio here, and then we're going to get into the juicy behind the scenes details that you wouldn't guess from reading her bio or her website. And then we're going to get into the topics of the secrets of personal mastery, which I think is going to be fun because there's always so many different perspectives on how do you get there and how do you achieve that. So Trang is a mentor and speaker for women who are hungry to pivot careers and build their dream business so they can live out their potential and purpose with freedom and fulfillment. In her mid-20s, Trang experienced a quarter-life crisis that led her to leave the sports industry so she could help women not just as athletes, but as human beings. Now Trang is determined to help others through step into their great power and thrive in their lives of impact. Because ultimately, she believes that when enough individuals are thriving, then humanity will thrive. And when humanity thrives, then the world can thrive for all forms of life and future generations. We are so down on the same page around that. That's awesome and beautiful. So welcome, and that's the official word on you. Tell us the unofficial side of things. So what's something no one would guess about you by looking at you or reading your website or whatever? What's something, and the juicier the better, so you know, you get extra points for juicy.
Okay, all right, let's hope that this actually meets the juicy threshold. I get told that when people read about me, when people see me, they see that, you know, I'm doing my thing, and they're like, yeah, she's like a professional, she's really good at what she does, but they wouldn't expect that I am a bit of a festival rat. Meaning I love electronic dance music. That's all I listen to, you know, morning, night, when I'm working, and then I will get the dance floor on at a music festival. So I go to a few every year. I don't really drink, so I go sober, but I just have a blast. And I'm there for the music. I love that the music's all around me and I can just soak it all up. That's my thing.
Awesome. Yeah, so they might not have guessed that you were, did you say festival rat? Is that what you said? Okay. I wasn't sure if you said rat or slut, and I was like, okay, well, either one is fine. Okay. That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this work. So tell us a bit about your journey, because you were an athlete before and working with athletes. So how did you come to do this kind of personal work?
Yeah, my journey here hasn't been straightforward, because when I finished school, I went straight into university and graduated with a master's of physiotherapy. So I believe it's called physical therapy over there, physiotherapy in Australia. And I was also a running and strength coach. So I was deep in the health and in the sports industry. And I was doing well. I was generally comfortable. I was in a good place. Until one moment in my mid-20s, so a few years ago, where I started to realize that, you know, this is going to be my path for the rest of my life. So is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And is this going to leave an impact that I want to leave for the rest of my life? So as I started to question this, I started to see the bigger picture of, you know what, I'm currently working with people as athletes. I'm helping them to get stronger. I'm helping them to run faster. But if I want to have as profound of an impact as possible, then I'd love to work with people as human beings, not just as athletes. And I really noticed whenever I worked with someone and they came back to me and told me, oh, you know, you helped me run faster, but also that translated into my work ethic and my discipline in my work or in my relationships. And that made me feel so much more fulfilled, because I was like, I can see the deep level of impact that I can have on these clients. So then that's when I gradually made the transition into what I am doing now. So working with women, helping them thrive in their lives, serve their heart's purpose, And yeah, the reason why I do that is purely for impact. Like my mission is to leave the world a better place than how I was born into it. And we can do that day to day. We don't have to do that through our work, but how I see it is working with women at this level, helping them transform at the core, serve their purpose through their work and through their business. Like that's how the ripple effect begins.
Yeah.
And the ripple effect, like the numbers are so, it compounds. If you affect one person and then, or even if you affect two people and they affect two people each, and those four people affect two people each, it exponentially expands.
Yes.
And I think, each of us, we really do have so much power in our lives just by being human. And I really want to make the most of that and use that for positive good.
I love it. And so you did kind of point to your why about really leaving the planet better than how you found it. And is that been a theme throughout your life? So, you were a top athlete. So excelling has been a part of your history. Why does that matter to you so much? Why does it matter to you to support people in excelling in their way?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd say it was something that came later on. My desire and longing to help others to excel. I think I'm the daughter of immigrant parents, so they came from poverty and war, and they were able to see so much that was in like developing third world countries. But I was born in Australia, so I didn't get to see, what was outside of my little bubble of privilege. So it wasn't until I got to my mid-20s that I could start to think and to question at a greater level and understand that my existence has a flow-on effect beyond what I would witness and understand. Every decision that I make has consequences. Like every decision that I make has a flow-on effect. And I only started to really understand that and emotionally connect to that later on. And that's when it just hit me. And it's funny because we all get taught this. I remember when I was in school, we get taught to turn off the lights so that we don't contribute to climate change. And when we got taught that we have a footprint, but it wasn't until later on that I actually emotionally cared and it meant something to me. So yeah, like that was the point where I was like, I have no other choice than to use my life as a vessel of service and to leave as much of a positive footprint as possible.
Beautiful. And I love the framing of, I have no other choice, because you really truly did have, but you chose to have it be a vessel of service, which I think is also a beautiful phrase. So talk a little bit about, what does personal mastery mean to you? Before we dive into the secrets of it, what does that phrase actually mean from your perspective?
Yeah, personal mastery. I love talking about this, first of all, because and yeah, we'll talk about this in a moment more, I'm sure. But I think it's something that we all have control over. It was something that we all have power over. And mastery, not to say that we have to be perfect and then we have to have it all sorted out, but it's essentially having full autonomy and dominion over ourselves. Mastering ourselves, the way that we think, the decisions that we make, the actions that we take, something that then has a massive flow-on effect to our results and ultimately our life trajectory. So personal mastery is that it's having autonomy over ourselves.
That's cool. I think that's a really interesting concept. And so autonomy from what? Because autonomy over ourselves means we're the chooser, right? But is there autonomy from something?
I like that perspective. I'd say because we live in this physical reality, right? We live in a world where there are so many different moving parts. There are so many different factors. So how I see it is being proactive and being in alignment to what it is that we value, what it is that we believe in, what it is that we commit to for ourselves, independent of the factors around us. So yeah, we could wake up and it's spring at the moment in Australia. I think you're going into winter soon.
Yeah.
And the weather could be really, really cold. And it could be very easy to stay in bed, to snooze the alarm, rather than getting up, putting on our active wear and going for that gym session and going for that run. But having full autonomy and having full power over ourselves, that comes independent of our environmental factors. And that's the thing, our actions, they can fall into those two main categories. They can be proactive or they can be reactive. And proactive is making decisions and doing things that are moving towards the greater vision or the greater goals that we have. That is based on, where we ultimately want to end up. But reactive tasks or reactive actions is based on the current environment and immediate things that may come into our life. So how I see it is having that control, having that power over ourselves, regardless of what's happening and any distractions that may come up.
Okay, well, let's dive deep into that, because really, I think part of the key is one of my coaches says you have to practice your mastery in order to master your practice. And I think that's a great phrase. And how do we do that as human beings? Because what we're really talking about is creating habits that overcome resistance. So like this morning, I got up and went to deep water workout. All 3 times last week that I was going to go, I didn't go. So how do we master ourselves so that we can develop more mastery?
I love that phrase. I haven't heard that before. That's great. So how we develop more mastery? Well, first of all, it starts with, this sounds cliche, but it all starts in here.
Yeah.
And if anyone can't see the video, it all starts in our mind. It all starts within us, because I really do believe that our external reality is simply a delayed reflection of our internal world. Our external world is a delayed reflection of our internal world. So when we see ourselves in a certain light, and there are different filters of our subconscious minds that I like to refer to. And the filters include our values, they include our beliefs, they include our identity. They also include a few other things as well. But I think these 3 main ones really have an effect on our perspective, and therefore the decisions that we make, therefore the actions that we take. So how we see ourselves is going to be a huge influencer in the decisions and the actions that we take. Because the problem is, a lot of people, they just focus on their habits and they just focus on doing things. I'm going to go on this diet. I'm going to, cut down on my portion sizes or my carbs. I'm going to start waking up early. I'm going to start having cold showers. But then that's just one aspect of our reality. It's actually, how I see it, is our decisions are the final step in a chain of our reality creation. And before that, we have all of these filters in our subconscious mind, such as our identity, our beliefs, and our values. So those are 3 of the 7 that I usually refer to. So our identity is how we see ourselves. Like, if we see ourselves as someone who is a procrastinator, there are people in our lives, I'm sure we all can think of a friend who they almost pride themselves of being a procrastinator, or they pride themselves of being, oh, like I'm the late person. Make sure you tell me that's a time that's half an hour earlier than what we should be, when we should be meeting up. And that's, as soon as you identify as a particular person, then of course your subconscious mind is naturally going to make decisions and do things that will match up with that identity, because our mind wants things to make sense. Our mind wants consistency. So our identity plays such a huge role in our actions, our values as well. How many people they want to be more disciplined in their lives? Maybe they want to be more disciplined with their morning routine, not checking their phone while they're working. They want to be focused, have laser focus when they're working. But then when they deep down look at their subconscious values, maybe they don't actually value discipline. And that could be linked to the beliefs as well. Like maybe they don't truly value discipline. They don't see it in a positive light. And therefore they don't stick to a disciplined routine. Maybe they have belief systems. And I used to think this. I used to have this perspective and belief about discipline that it is rigid, is regimented, it is boring, it is hard and unsustainable, because I had seen evidence in my own life that every time I tried to stick to something, I'd be able to last maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and then I'd fall off the wagon. So I would have this belief, and I would truly deep down inside of me think that discipline was unsustainable. But then of course, when I'm seeing it in that light, then I'm not going to value it, because why would I want to be and do something that's rigid, that's boring, that's hard, that's unsustainable? Like, why would I like that?
Yeah.
So then because of my beliefs, I don't value discipline, and then I can't be disciplined. I can't do discipline for a long time.
Right.
So this is like the multifactorial nature of our habits. Yes, starting small, doing one thing at a time, really being honest with ourselves, being accountable with ourselves. But before that, there are all of these filters in our subconscious minds that already will push us in one way or another in regards to these habits.
I love that. And I think there's, so how I'm hearing that is we need to figure out who we want to be, rather than focusing just on the do or the do, in order to really have that grounded in something more substantive of the who do we want to be, who do we choose to be. So tell us a little bit of a distinction between values and beliefs, because for some people those might seem like the same thing. So how do you define the two?
Yeah, that's a good question. I used to get confused between the two as well. Values are the things that we subconsciously look up to, and the things that we subconsciously perceive as important. And what that means is it's just the things that we're constantly thinking about, the things that we're constantly doing or being. It's omnipresent in our life. And what that also means is it's not just the positive things in our life. I actually see values as anything that can also be unresourceful. But if we're constantly thinking about it, if we're constantly talking about it, if we're constantly doing it, then it is a value of ours, whether or not we realize that. So I'm sure we've all come across that one person in our lives who they rock up to work and they're just like, oh my gosh, I've had the most stressful morning. I was trying to leave the house and then my cat vomited on my shoes and I was in traffic and there's just so much traffic and I was running late and then I spilled my coffee on my pants. I'm just so stressed out. I've got such a big day ahead. I'm just, so stressed. And like in that one monologue already, they've mentioned the word stress multiple times. So that person, I actually see them as valuing stress.
Right.
Subconsciously, it's a big part of who they are, how they think, what they do, because they're literally acting out stress. So that is the values. It's something that informs and guides like our decision making, who we are, what we do. Our beliefs is actually our subconscious perception and what we believe about our values or about ourselves or the world around us.
Right.
So someone may value discipline, someone may value stress, and they'll have set beliefs about those values. So yeah, I previously wanted to be more disciplined. I wanted to value discipline, but deep down, I believed that discipline was rigid, hard, and unsustainable. Therefore, I could not sustain that discipline. But now I've taken on the belief that discipline equals freedom. I truly believe that when we are disciplined with our time, when we're disciplined with our actions, we create long-term success or results or fulfillment, and that is freedom.
Right.
And now I see discipline in so much more of a positive light, and that helps me to stay disciplined in my life.
Yes, absolutely. So really becoming aware of what the beliefs are, what the values are based on how we act and how we show up consistently. And of course, identity being the how we see ourselves. Would you define that differently? Is there a way that you define identity as well?
Yeah, essentially our sense of self or our self-image, how we see ourselves, and the words that we would use to describe ourselves, or the type of archetype that we'd see ourselves as. You know,
Right.
are we someone who is like courageous, a courageous hero, or are we, you know, a victim? So the characters that we associate with ourselves.
Right. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about some more tips for being able to shift any one of those three. And where is the good starting point? Is it the starting point at the values level, the beliefs level? Where's a good
Mm,
starting point for shifting from a behavior we don't want to a behavior we do want?
mm, yeah. In terms of starting point, you can start anywhere because all of these filters, they all influence each other. So if you start to believe something in a positive light, it's going to affect how you value it. And then when you value it, you might do it more, and then that's going to affect your identity. But also it can go the other way around as well. If you start to shift your identity, that's going to play into your values, your beliefs, like your actions, the people you surround yourself with. And then it's all a snowball effect because they all influence each other. In fact, it's funny, if I were to say one thing to start with, the most instantaneous thing that we can adjust, it's actually something that I haven't already mentioned, but it is one of these filters of the subconscious mind. It's
Mhm.
something that we can adjust instantly, and that is our environment.
Mm.
Our environment is a filter, and it's something that we can so immediately transform, and it will have an instantaneous flow-on effect to the way that we see ourselves, the way that we think, our values, our beliefs. So I often like to start with environment, because how often do you listen to a podcast episode, or you know have a group coaching session, or you meet up with a friend who helps you and supports you through something, and you instantaneously feel better?
Mhm.
Or you catch up with someone and they just say things in passing about how they're doing this on the weekend, and how they've started this morning routine or their nighttime routine, and it just rubs off on you, especially when they're not telling you what to do. They just say it in passing.
Yeah.
And that's because we're constantly being molded by our environment without us even realizing, constantly.
Right.
Even when we think that we are fighting our environment, it is something that seeps into us like osmosis. We absorb it. So our environment is something that we can change so instantaneously. And
Mm.
if we were to surround ourselves with more people, that's the most like the easiest one that we can, like one of the easiest environmental factors that can be changed, the people who we're surrounded by, and they're going to very quickly start to change our environment of values, beliefs, and identity as well. Like,
Mm.
for example, when I first got into triathlons, I used to think that running twice a week was a lot. When I first got into running, I was only running once a week. And then I remember reading somewhere in a news article about this woman. I think she was a mother, and she was running twice a week, and it had helped her, so much in her life. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, running twice a week is so much. And then when I got into triathlon and I joined a triathlon club, and these people aren't just training twice a week, they're training twice a day.
Mm.
And that was normal for them, then that just started to shift the standards in my life. So my beliefs changed, my values changed, my identity changed. I'm in a triathlon club, so I'm a triathlete now, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say start with the environment.
That's a brilliant starting point, because it is something that we do have choice over and perceive ourselves to have more choice over it, because we have choice over a lot of the others, but we just may not perceive that as much. And it's true, it really does expand our context when we see that other possibility. I've facilitated personal development programs for over 35 years, and I used to develop or facilitate one that was a very intense 5-day deep dive, lots of intensity. And I used to think that 35 was a really big group to hold in that space and so forth, until I went to one led by a woman named Mama Gina, and there was 900 women, and we were doing the same kind of deep level work. I was like,
Wow.
context expanded. It's not, and so it's really about having that contextual expansion so that we have a different frame of reference around here's what's possible, here's who we can be, and being around people who see things differently and in different ways from us. So you've mentioned a couple of times the frameworks, that the 3 or 4 of the 7 that you've mentioned now. Is that from a particular book or body of work, or is that something you've come up with? Where did that all come from?
Yeah, so it's what I'm referring to are the different filters of the reticular activation system. So that is the framework, or that is the that's the science behind it. It's called the reticular activation system, which is the filtering system of our subconscious mind. And a lot of that has come from NLP.
Okay, got it. Because you mentioned in a line earlier that I thought was really lovely, the chain of reality creation. And that's a really fascinating way to think of how to approach, if you're a coach, how to approach shifting and doing transformational work, or if you're a facilitator or someone who does transformational work. Thinking of it as the chain of reality creation is really beautiful. Is there any books in that realm that you would recommend that support people with this kind of work?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually got it behind me. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think his work is fantastic. He talks so much about the inner workings, the mind, the subconscious mind at a scientific level, and how that is the core of our routines, our habits. And if we want to break the habit of being ourselves, that's where it starts.
Love it. Okay, thank you. And how do you work with people? How can people find out more about you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm active on social media. So if someone wants to come find any of my pages, I am Trang Nova on most, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Instagram is Trang_Nova.
Okay.
But I do mentoring and speaking. So one-on-one, group masterminds and retreats, and speaking as well. So you can find me. I'll be around.
Okay, and social media. So Trang at Trang, Nova, Nova. So you can search her out and find her and DM her about what she can do. Do you have a website that's up right now? I know you're doing
I do.
In the middle of that. So what's your website?
It is trangnova.com.
Okay, well, that's easy.
Keeping it simple.
Okay, awesome. And mostly, do you work with people in terms of coaching programs? What do you do? How do you help people?
Yeah, sure. I do a combination of mentoring and coaching. So I like to combine those 2 different ways of, empowering people as well as guiding them strategically towards their outcomes. So mentoring one-on-one, I do that over longer timeframes, allowing you to truly transform and to take all the steps that you need to realize your dreams. And then the group masterminds that I run, it's called Life of Legacy. And it's all about you stepping into your greatest power and becoming the woman of legacy that you deep down know you are. And that is a group mastermind with group calls. And then we also have a beautiful retreat within that mastermind.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. We have so many similarities and synchronicities, and I love your clarity. You've obviously been doing this for a while, but not only have you been doing it for a while, you've really clarified and distilled your process, who you work with, how you help them. It's lovely because not everybody I have on the show has that kind of clarity about their process, how they help people, and what the transformational kind of journey looks like. So congratulations on that. It's nice.
Yeah.
And what's
Thank
one
you, Joanne.
last piece of advice you'd like to leave everyone with? What's one takeaway you'd like them to think about?
Yeah. The last thing that I'd love to leave everyone with is actually a quote from Tim Ferriss. And it's one of my favorite quotes that has just given me so much light, life, and empowerment. And the quote is this: reality is negotiable. And when we experiment and stress test all of the impossibilities, we'll quickly discover that all of our limitations are simply a fragile collection of society's like thoughts and structures that we can choose to break at any time.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm going to go find that quote and post it below our conversation. Thank you so much for being here all the way from the other side of the world. And thank you for the work you're doing. I think it's really valuable and concrete and powerfully transformative work. So thank you for that and for supporting women and stepping up and out into the world to be the difference, because you're right. It really is a ripple effect. When people are being the difference that only they can be, then that puts that gift into the world, and that impacts others, and that impacts others. So beautiful, beautiful work. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you and what you're bringing to the table. So check her out, go to trangnova.com. And if you are in that transformational process, please join the Purpose of Profit Sisterhood community so that you can be supported in a community. Check out Trang's mastermind group and what's going on there and whether or not that's a good fit for you. But whatever you're doing, find a community. It's that tip that she gave you about controlling your environment. Find a community that sees you with fresh eyes, holds you as who you're becoming, and encourages you to step into that and make your leaps. Thanks so much for being here, Trang. Have a bodacious week, everybody. Bye for now.